Calling all Robert Jordan fans, The Wheel of Time is back with season 2 having premiered on September 1st on Prime Video. 3 episodes of season 2 are currently out now and streaming. Are you watching? Let me know. Now, if you'll remember back in 2021, The Wheel of Time released its first series, which is based on the best-selling book series that has 14 installments, the first of which is The Eye of the World. This is an incredibly popular book series, y'all. Look at this, 500,000 Goodreads ratings. Also, interestingly, after Robert Jordan sadly passed away, with the blessing of his wife, a superfan wrote the last 3 installments of the series, which I just think is remarkable. When season 1 debuted back in 2021, as you can see, there was kind of a mix of feelings. Like, there was a pretty good critical score. 81% is not bad at all, but audience score was in the 60s. Let's look at a few of the reviews together. So Scott Bryan of BBC noted about season 1, what frustrates me is from the outset of The Wheel of Time is that it does that thing where it spends 5 minutes quickly explaining a world you don't know with terminology you've never heard or really understand, sort of making the argument that if you haven't read the books or don't really have the backstory, it's kind of difficult to pick up on this world with a lot of moving pieces. Now, Rebecca Long of Slate and Brad Newsom of the Sydney Morning Herald note that while the adaptation isn't a carbon copy of the books, it works well as a complement. And Brad Newsom says, in the world of fantasy literature, Robert Jordan's Wheel of Times novels were once the biggest thing since The Lord of the Rings, as we could tell by that 500,000 ratings on Goodreads. This handsome and expensive-looking new television adaptation looks like doing them justice. So some of these reviews are based on, just seeing the first few episodes or just seeing the preview. Maybe aren't the best judge of the whole series. I watched all of season 1, and my biggest critique was kind of along Scott Bryan's critique that they don't really spend a lot of time explaining for people who are not native to this world, people who haven't read the books, people who aren't. I have read the books, so I did know a lot of the things, but it would have been quite confusing had I not. Now, season 2 has debuted this month on September 1st. It looks like the critical score is 76%, down 5 points from last year, whereas the audience score is up 25% with 1,000 audience ratings already. I mean, this show just came out a few days ago. This is kind of continuing the trend of these slow burn TV shows that over time are just getting huge viewerships. I think that's why it's so important to not cancel a show after one season. You have to really invest over time in a show. You think even of properties like Game of Thrones, which, as you know, if you follow this channel, I really love. And it took, even though the show was quite popular from the get-go, it didn't have the global fan base that it did, season 6 through 8 in season 1. I remember when I was in college and the first few seasons were coming out, I didn't even watch it at the time. I started watching towards the end of college, and then I obsessively binged the whole thing, and had they canceled for low viewership numbers after season 1, they wouldn't have been able to capture this now massive global fan base that's obsessed with the books like I am and so many others are. Now, the critical consensus for season 2, I just watched the first episode of season 2, and it's kind of slow. I mean, I enjoyed it because I enjoy this series and I like these characters, and spending time in the world is interesting, but it's kind of a slow show, and it still doesn't really explain too much and just has a lot of assumed knowledge. One thing that's really good about fantasy properties like Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, is they really, really explain constantly. If you'll remember, Harry Potter is a great example of this because constantly Hermione will be like, haven't you two read Hogwarts: A History? If you did, you would know that you can't apparate out of Hogwarts. And by having those little asides constantly, it's basically educating the viewer, the reader, about the terms of the world. Wheel of Time doesn't do that. It doesn't explain anything to you. It kind of just has a lot of assumed knowledge, which maybe if the conversion from book fan base to TV fan base was, hyper high, that would be fine. But it seems like there's a lot of people who are coming to this who haven't read the books and just kind of don't know what's going on. That being said, I still have a lot of hopes that this season is going to be fantastic, especially because that audience score is much higher and audience members are a lot more fickle, it seems, than critics. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Are you watching Wheel of Time? Have you read the books? Did you read Eye of the World, which is the first in the 14 installments of the Wheel of Times series? Are you a fan of Robert Jordan's writing? Let me know. Also, just noting that this series is packed with amazing actors. And yeah, it's I recommended it, but I'm quite curious what people think about it.